Hello friends, welcome back to Aunt Debbie's Boutique. Today we're going to be making a wallet. It will be similar to this. This was my practice one. I'm going to make it a little stiffer and turn the zipper pocket a little differently. But it will look very, very similar to this. This is for those of you who like to have a wider wallet and be able to carry a lot more stuff in it. Okay, what you're going to need today is, I have made a list. Let's see if you can see all that. It's in chicken scratches, but maybe this will, you can screen snap this and be able to have a list of everything you need. Okay. For the body of it, we're going to need one piece of fabric. And I just love this fabric. I think it's so pretty. And it's going to be 9 by 9 inches. We need something stiff. I like Peltex. And I like it because it's fusible and it's very stiff. So an 8 by 8 piece of Peltex with a 1/2 inch left all the way around on every side, and then a 9 by 9 piece of lining. That's for the body. For the card pockets, we're going to need 3 pieces of fabric that are 4.5 inches tall and 9 inches wide. They're going to go like this. And some light interfacing. I used Pellon 911 FF on this. SF 101 also would work very well. And the lining is 3.5 inches by 8 inches wide, and we iron that on the back of all 3 pockets. Then for our zipper pouch, we need a piece of lining and a piece of the outside fabric, even though the outside fabric is going to be the inside of our zipper pouch. And the size of the zipper pouch is 7.5 inches tall and 9 inches wide. Everything we're making is 9 inches wide. And we're going to be using 1/2 inch seams on this for the most part. So we need a piece of lining and of outside that is 7.5 by 9. And then we need some interfacing that is 7 by 8 inches. And we're leaving 1/2 inch on each side and just 1/4 inch on the top and the bottom. Okay. Then we're going to have a tab, and this tab piece was 3.5 inches tall and 1.5 inches wide. So we need a lining and a regular of that. Then we need a piece. I'm going to use Peltex. You can choose to use something lighter if you want. Peltex is so stiff, and on something this small, it's kind of difficult to turn it. But I did it on this, and I'll be able to get it turned on that. It's just harder than it is with something that's lighter weight. So you can choose. And then, well, I'll show you about what we're going to do with that. We need a closure of some sort. I'm going to use, this is something I think I got at Hobby Lobby, but you can order them online too. A magnetic clasp, purse clasp. You're going to need a zipper that is preferably longer than 9 inches. It's a lot easier to install one if it is longer. So this one is 11 inches. And then this is not a necessity, but it sure helps. For sewing your zipper in, some double-sided tape that is for sew in. Don't just get any double-sided tape. I believe the brand I really like is Wonder Under, and it's about an 1/8 inch thick. This is really too thick, but it was all they had when I needed some. And so I have cut it down the middle to use it, just using half of it. Okay, let's start with the zipper pad tab first and get the hard part over with. You'll notice these marks that I have on here. What I did was find the center, which is 3/4 of an inch in, it should be at least, and come down 1 inch from the top and put a dot. Then about 1/8 of an inch on either side, I put a little mark, and that's going to be where our prongs go in. So the easiest way I found to do this is with a seam ripper, and this is a fairly new seam ripper, so it's still really sharp, so you have to be careful not to cut it real fast like I almost did there. Okay, also you'll notice that the Peltex has been ironed to the lining side. That's because it's going to be the inside of the wallet. Now we're going to put our, which side? This one is the one. I like to use the male side on this. We stick the prongs through the little slits we made. Then we're going to place one of these little rings for protection there and to hold it. And you just bend in. I put the wrong piece on there. Okay, got it lined up, and then you just bend these prongs over, and then I like to pound it with something, get it down real good. Now, because this is so hard to turn, I'm going to offer an alternative. We're going to just press all this under around the Peltex. And we're going to do it an easier way. Now you can still turn it, sew right sides together and turn it if you want, but this, with something this stiff and this small, it's really hard to do. Okay, we're gonna then take it to this, and we're gonna do the same thing for turning this side under. Now this is a little bit cumbersome. I'm going to clip it just a little bit, but believe me, it's easier than trying to turn it inside out. Okay, I've ironed it a little bit better and got it held in place. And we're just going to stitch and turn as we stitch all the way around. And we have to stitch real close to the edge. Okay, here's our tab. Okay, here's our tab with our clasp on the underneath side. Let's give it a quick steam and lay it aside. And I promise you that's the hardest part of this. The rest of this is going to be very simple. The next thing we're going to do is make our card pockets. And all we have to do on them is fold them in half lengthwise and iron them. And then we will take them over to the machine and top stitch each of them right across the fold. So let me go do that real quickly and I'll be right back. We have our pockets, card pockets, all top stitched. And now we want to take our lining piece, and I'm going to go ahead and fold this in half just so I have a go by to let me know where the center is. Did I fold that in half? Not particularly. Okay. Now then, we're going to line our card pockets up and stagger them a ½ inch apart. So this one is going to line, the bottom one's going to line up with the edge of our wallet. And we're going to take about a ¼ inch seam to start with. Then about a ½ inch up from that is where our next one's going to be. And then about an inch up from the bottom is where our last one's going to be. So let's measure and put that out of the way. And line this up about an inch from the bottom. And then I want to pin that in place. And I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and just sew a quick seam about an 1/8 to a ¼ inch up. I'll be right back. Now then, we want to sew the next one about a ½ inch up. So I'm gonna eyeball it and then measure it. I think I'm going to turn it this way because it's easier to see that. Okay, that looks to be about a ½ inch. You also want to look at how even it is up here. Now I'm going to stitch that across, and then I'm going to line up the last one and stitch it, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've stitched them all on once, and then while I was at the machine, I went back and stitched about a 1/2 inch above the first seam. And that's so that when we put our cards in there, we wanted the close seam to tack it down, but when we put our cards in here, we want them to stick up a little bit above. That's all the way in, so we can see what they are. Now, let's measure. This is 9 inches. And we want to go 4.5 in. So I'm going to line 4.5 on my ruler here on the edge. This is the 4.5 line. Draw me a little line there. I'm going to stitch down this, and I'm going to stitch real close to the edge here just as a placeholder. So I'll be right back. Now I've got that all basted in place, and it's going to be perfect for our cards. And there's plenty of room in there. Now, I will mention that our seam allowance is going to be a 1/2 inch, so that's going to take up part of that. Okay, I hope you found that. If you were confused by the accordion style folding to make card pockets, I hope maybe this was a simpler way for you. Now, the next thing we're going to do is our zipper pocket. And we're going to make this real simple. I've put the lightweight interfacing on the lining side because that's what's going to show. And this fabric is going to be on the outside. I'm kind of iron it in place there a little bit, and that'll help. Okay. You see it's not perfectly cut here, so I'm going to use the lining fabric as my correct seam allowance. Okay, now the zipper pocket is going to go like this in our purse. So make sure that you have the 9-inch going this way. On my practice wallet, I accidentally turned it this way, and then it was too narrow for our wallet. So make sure you don't make my mistake. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to baste real close to the edge with the wrong sides together, both sides of this. Now that I've basted that, I'm going to trim off this excess here. Now that I've stitched that part, you're probably wondering how we're going to do the other side. We're going to unzip our zipper, and this is another reason why it's a good idea to, but we're going to attach it and then unzip it to sew it. But this is another reason it's a good idea to have a longer zipper. Now, let's see if I can do this where you can see it. I'm going to put my zipper tape close to the edge again. And then pull off the backing. And then we want to make sure we line up both ends just as closely as we can. With that edge folded under. It's a little bit harder for me to see it over here, but I want you to be able to see it. We have it even on both ends. Now this is where I'm going to unzip it. And then top stitch it. Now when I zip it back up, that's a cause thread there. We have our zipper pouch. Okay, let's go back over to the ironing table. Now I'm going to roll this up to where the zipper tape is at the top. So we have just the width of the zipper tape there at the top. And make sure your pull's still on this side. Then I'm going to quickly stitch close to the edge on each of these so we can cut off our zipper tape. Okay, that just basted, held it in place. And one thing I didn't mention is you need to make sure your pull is somewhere on this side. You don't want it off the edge here and then stitch it and you won't be able to unzip it. Now I'm going to cut off the ends. I do not use my good fabric scissors for this. That was a pair of scissors I use for paper and anything tough to cut, the Peltex. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is leave about a 1/2 inch down at the bottom. And stitch this in place. I also think I'll tack the edges just to hold them in place while we're putting the outside on. Now, if you're wondering why I have this piece of white tape there, it is because that is a 1/2 inch seam. And when I sew the outside, that's going to be my guide. And I thought that was just a good tip to share with you. You can measure from your needle over and put your tape there. Now, before we sew it all together, I folded this in half, and I think I want that to be the front and this the back, because I like that bird, even though he's kind of sitting sideways. So I'm going to let that be the front. Now I am going to measure over. Make sure that's 9 inches. Yes. So we're going to go 4.5 from the edge. I hope you can see this. Slide it over here, make sure. So 4.5 inches over from the edge of my wallet, and then I'm going to go up 2 inches, and I'm going to put a little dot right there, because we're going to put the other half of our fastener on there. So from that dot, about 1/8 of an inch on either side, I'm going to make a tiny little slit. And then I'm going to follow the same procedure as I did before, putting the magnetic side out, flipping it over and putting this little ring on. And this Peltex helps it not ever pull through too. Well, I moved them both at the same time. Should put one all the way down, and then the other side. And these are going to stay for life. They're not going to come out. I really like these kind of closures. Okay, then at the top of this, we're going to want our tab. So we're going to put it right sides together, and we're also going to measure over 4.5 inches. And I'm just going to mark that right there, and that's going to be the center of our tab. So I'm going to put that right in the center and pin it in place. And that's why I didn't have the Peltex come all the way to the edge. This doesn't have a lot of Peltex in it. Okay, now with right sides together and with our zipper pocket at the top, is that right? Let me make sure. When I open it up, yes, I want the zipper pocket at the top. So I'm going to pin this on here very carefully. So that it lays nice and smooth after I stitch it. And the reason I'm putting these parallel to the seams is I don't want to pin through the Peltex. It's so thick. Otherwise, I would have them perpendicular. Now, we're going to start on the end that has the card pockets. And we're going to leave 3 to 4 inches there in the middle that we're not going to sew so we can turn it. I don't think my stickiest tape. Okay. And you can kind of feel the edge of your Peltex too to make sure you're stitching right on the outside edge of that. Let's go back over to the sewing table to finish this. Now I'm just going to clip my corners. And I'm also going to give them a little angular trim here. I think that makes it easier. Now we're going to turn it right side out, and again with this Peltex that's kind of difficult, but it can be done. But you will see why it would have been so hard to have turned it right side out on the tab. Reedy, be quiet. Now I want to make sure I get my corners pulled out real good. Before I go and top stitch this, because that's the only step we have left, is top stitching it and turning under our edges that we left open to turn it. So that's going to be our wallet right after we get it top stitched. I want it turned down this edge, and with that Peltex in there, it's a real, makes it a lot easier to get it turned in all the way. All right, I'm going to take it over to the sewing table. Excuse me, I hit the camera. This one corner's not cooperating. And I'm going to top stitch all the way around, and then we're going to steam it really good. Okay. And there's our wallet. We have room for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards, and you can put more than one card in a slot. You can put your bills, your dollar bills, checkbook, whatever, your cell phone, anything like that in there. And in our zipper pocket, we can put change or just anything we want. So this little wallet will carry it all. Now, if you want to make a wristlet out of it, just refer to the last video, and the only different thing you have to do is to put your little tab in here when you're sewing the front to the back with the little D-ring on it, and then you can hook your wristband onto that. I didn't think it was necessary. We've already done a wristband. I didn't think it was necessary to repeat it again, but you can certainly do that. Okay, thank you for joining me today. I hope I have showed you some simpler ways to do things than a lot of the conventional ways or some of the complicated patterns. If you like what you see, I hope you will subscribe to my channel so I can continue to bring you more videos. And I appreciate you a lot. So next time we're going to be making a small purse. It's be the perfect size for a child. But a lot of women carry small purses. My sister carries one so small I don't know how she gets anything in it. So please join me, and we have a real simple way of making a purse. Thank you. Remember, whatever you do, do it to the glory of God. Thanks.